don't think we talk enough about how powerful it can be to actually do less. And at this stage in our lives, as we're, in our late 40s, approaching 50 and beyond, we have our family life, we have our work life, we have personal goals, we have other obligations, and it can just be a lot to juggle. And it can be really easy to assume that maybe you just need to work harder. Maybe you need better time management skills. Maybe you need to be more disciplined. But what I've learned and what I'm continuing to learn is that sometimes the answer is just to slow down and carry less. As I get closer to 50, I don't really want to juggle all of these different things anymore. I want to build something that's sustainable. I want to really show up fully for the things that matter most. And doing less has actually helped me to do that. Doing more often used to feel like the right strategy. When I was in my 30s and 40s, it probably was more energizing for me. It felt more energizing and it was exciting to accomplish a lot in a short amount of time. I've always been very ambitious, but for me, ambition used to look like stacking goals and taking on lots of big projects at one time. For example, when I was in my late 30s, I was writing my master's thesis and decided that that would be a good time for me to open a brick and mortar business. It was bananas. It was absolutely insane, but I had an opportunity that came across my lap and I wanted to go for it. So I was like working 24/7, and my daughter, I think, was two around that time. And so I probably wasn't as present for her as I would have liked to have been. And I know I was running myself ragged. I was getting sick a lot. I was just really busy and going really crazy. And I think it was because my identity and my worth were really tied into having all of these accomplishments, being productive, always having something in the pipeline, something that I was always doing. And it was easy to believe that if something mattered to me, that I should go all in. And that again meant, sacrificing sleep and sacrificing time with family and sacrificing the other things that really mattered to me, just going all in and kind of pushing everything else aside. And even in my career, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I do have a full time job. I've worked in marketing for years and I love what I do. But for a really long time, I was focused more on my next promotion. What can I do to get an edge up? What can I do to stand out? What can I do? What opportunities are available? And so I was always thinking ahead instead of being present, and I'm sure my work probably suffered for that. I was very successful. I was, often I was promoted maybe like once a year, which was pretty good for the company I was with and the industry that I was in. But I don't know that it created like a really meaningful time for me in my career. And at some point, doing all of those things started to make me feel disconnected and almost like my brain was crowded. Like there were just so many things going on inside my head, and it wasn't empowering, it wasn't energizing. It was stressful. And at this stage of my life, I have a lot to balance, and I'm sure you do too. We all have lots of things going on at this stage of life. It's balancing a career, having your family obligations, making sure that you're present as a wife, mother, daughter, sister, all of the things. For me, it's also balancing my fitness and my running schedule and my lifting and making sure that I'm also scheduling in time for rest, mobility, stretching, foam rolling, all of the things that runners are supposed to do. And there's just a lot. There's a lot that goes on. My writing and really making sure that when I'm doing that, I can be fully present and work on that. And here we are, just a little over a month into the year, and I've already had to let some of the writing goals I had go for the time being. I'm not doing it. But I think I mentioned a few videos back that I had signed up for a training in editing and getting my novel manuscript ready for submission. And I really haven't had the time to be able to do that. I have other things that I'm working on. And so it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do it. It doesn't mean that I've lost my drive or my ambition. It just means that I'm protecting my energy and I'm prioritizing. My novel is not going anywhere. I'm very, very proud of the fact that I was able to put together a first draft. And I know that when it feels right, I'll come back to it. But I think it's really, really important for people to recognize when they feel overwhelmed. And that's something that I have been learning over the years to do, is to figure out, okay, well, there are some things that are really important to me. There are some things that I don't have a choice. I have to go to work. I have to make a living. I have to drive my daughter to the bus stop in the morning or get her to her drama rehearsals. There are certain things that are non negotiables that have to be done. And then there are things that I want to do and that are important to me. And then there are the things that are like nice to do's. Like, yeah, I would love to be able to work on my novel, make it really great. But I think if I were to do that right now with all of the other things that are happening, I wouldn't be able to give it my best. And it's just not worth it to do that. The distinction here is that I don't have less ambition than I used to have. I just have less interest in chaos. And I'm just being much more intentional with my time. And I think that is so much more powerful than trying to cram in all of the things and make myself crazy. So now instead of wondering what else I can add or how I can cram more things into my day, it's more about looking at what can I let go and what is most important. So, for example, I just talked about my writing a little bit. I have put my novel on the back burner, which I'm totally fine with. But I enjoy writing. I've always been a writer. It's a big part of what I do in my professional career. And now that I'm building this brand, a big piece of that is writing an essay and posting it to Substack every week. And so that's really where my focus is as far as writing. And like I said, my novel's not going anywhere. I will go back to it when it feels more aligned for me. Another really good example of this in my life is my running schedule. I know I talk about it a lot, but I follow a lot of other runners, and I see so many people who are running 5, 6, 7 days a week, and here I am running 3 days a week and calling myself a runner. But that's what works for me. And so those workouts, those running workouts that I do, are very intentional. I have a day where I work on my speed. I have a day where I work on just keeping a really steady pace. And then I have a long run every weekend. And that's something that just carries me forward. I don't have to worry about what other people are doing. The 3 days a week is manageable for me. And sometimes I have to be a little bit flexible, especially with the long runs. If it's going to take, some of those runs take a few hours, and so I need to make sure that I can fit that into my schedule. But I plan for it, and I don't overdo it. The most important focus for me right now is my family, and my family has always been important to me. But I used to sort of put family time aside so that I could work on goals that I was working towards. And I did that with the mentality that, oh, if I put in a lot of work now, then later I'll be able to have time with my family. And I think a lot of people do think that way, that, oh, if I put in all this work and I make all this money, or I get the big promotion, then that's going to give me time with my kids and my husband later. But that's not always the way that it works. And now that I am getting older, my kids are getting older, my husband's getting older, and our time is very precious. We all have conflicting schedules. So, my son and my husband, they both work outside of the home, and they have different schedules. Sometimes my husband works days, sometimes he works nights. My son tends to work the evening shift. And then there's my daughter. She's a teenager. She has school, obviously, but she also is very involved in theater and drama. And she very often has two shows going at once, which means there are two rehearsal schedules. And there's just a lot of driving her around. We live in Central Florida, where it takes a while to get anywhere. A place that's like 5 miles down the road could take half an hour to get to. So we're balancing all of that stuff. So what I do is I take a look at the calendar every week and figure out, okay, well, we could probably do a family dinner on this night. My husband and I could maybe do a date night on this night. my daughter and I can go see this show that she wants to see, this Saturday for the matinee or whatever. But I have to do that because it is different every week and it is very important for me to schedule that time. Time with my family is my biggest priority right now. So if I'm able to push something else aside that maybe isn't as high of a priority, I will do that. And having those fewer goals means that you can pay more attention to the things that you are focused on. And that means better follow through. So that means that if I am really focused on writing my essay for my Substack, then I'm going to give that my full attention. And it's probably going to be a better outcome, a better result, a better written piece than if I had all of these other things going on. So what I'm really trying to drive home here is that having fewer goals, and again, that also means like all of the actions and habits that will get you there, having fewer of those really works better because it's much more manageable. You don't have as much mental clutter. You don't have the decision fatigue of, oh, what should I do now or what should I do next? And it just gives you more clarity. I always know what I'm going to be doing and when I'm going to be doing it. It also gives me the ability to be more emotionally present for my husband and my kids. I can fully engage with them. I'm not distracted when we're spending time together, and they know that they're a priority to me. Everything else that I do ties into my family, but it's really important to me that number one, we enjoy our time together, but also that they know that they are top priority for me. I also perform better at work. I am no longer really focused on getting the next promotion. I have a job that I truly love, and that's the first time I've been able to say that for several years. I actually ended up changing companies a couple times, and a few places that I worked just were not a good fit for me. The culture was off. I didn't feel supported. I didn't feel like I was valued or part of a team. And I have that now. And I don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. But I'm just not so worried about moving on and getting that next promotion or going to that next step. I'm not opposed to it, but really what I'm focused on now is producing really good quality work, building great relationships with my team and my coworkers and any customers that I interact with. And I think that my work is higher quality because of that. When you're not spread thin, you show up better everywhere. I'm much more patient. I'm much more present and connected with my family, my friends, my coworkers, anybody who I have a relationship with. And, quite frankly, I think that's because my nervous system isn't always overloaded. I'm not always thinking about 1,000 different things at once. So, how does this work? How do you do less intentionally? Well, a lot of it comes back to remembering what you can control. And that comes down to action goals. So, instead of always being focused on how fast you can run a race or how much weight you can lose before bikini season or, how you can get that next promotion or, insert your big goal here. Focus on the actions, focus on building structure and habit. And that makes things so much more manageable. Think about also like, are there things that you can deprioritize? For me, again, that's my novel. And it doesn't mean that it's not important to me. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to come back to it. It just means that right now, it just doesn't feel aligned with some of the other things that I want to do. You can't do everything. You just can't. And it's important to really focus on the things that energize you, that bring you joy, the things that are really important to who you are right now. Another thing is just to make sure that you're building in time for yourself, build in time for relaxation, for sleep, for doing things that you enjoy, whether that means that you take a walk around the block and enjoy the sunshine, or you go to a movie, or you watch a Netflix series that you've been wanting to watch, or read a book, meditate, do yoga. There's so many different ways to recharge. And I think it's just a matter of finding what helps you recharge and what helps you feel good without having a goal tied to it, just doing it just because. And also, you want to make sure that you create some non negotiables. and make sure that everything else is flexible. So, my running schedule is non negotiable for me. My doing all of the things that I need to do to create content for this brand is a non negotiable for me right now. And again, like I said earlier, number one for me is family time. That once I figure out, okay, Thursday night we're doing a family dinner, I don't change that. I don't do anything else. I make sure that I'm planning either maybe we'll go out to a restaurant for dinner, maybe I'll cook something that everybody really enjoys, but those moments are fleeting and I need to make sure that they happen. And really, when I protect that energy, when I protect that time, it really gives me more energy. It helps me to narrow my focus and be much more focused on each moment, being present in that moment. Ambition looks different to me now than it did before. I don't feel less ambitious than I did in my 30s and early 40s. I just feel like it's different. I'm more intentional with my time. I'm not trying to see how much I can cram into a day, a week, a month, a year. I'm just planning things out and just really whatever the time is devoted to. Like right now, I'm devoted to making this video. I'm not worried about the laundry in the dryer that needs to be folded. I'm not worried about the fact that I need to leave to pick up my daughter in 10 minutes. I am just right now focused on what I need to do and what I need to get done. And then I will move on to the next thing. I'm just not trying to see how much I can carry anymore. It's more about figuring out what's worth carrying. And there's nothing to prove. I know when I was younger, I was always trying to prove myself to my peers, my coworkers, my parents, my friends. Like, look at what I did. Look at what I can do. I don't care about that stuff anymore. It's not that it's not nice to be recognized, but that's not a driving factor for me anymore. And it doesn't make me feel like I need to constantly do more. I know that energy is very valuable, especially as we get older, we may not have as much energy. I've been very fortunate that despite some health issues I've had in the past, I am pretty healthy and I take care of myself. So I do have a good amount of energy, but there are times where I'm really tired and really, just exhausted and I need to just wind down. So, I really prioritize my sleep, my recovery from my runs, making sure that I'm stretching, doing yoga, doing mobility work. Um, I guess what I'm saying is peace matters more to me. Just having some personal peace and protecting that. And of course, family and relationships are always going to be number one. They're very, very important. And with that said, when there are relationships that do start to feel draining or maybe not as energizing, it's something that needs to be addressed. And I won't go into that right now, but it's just something to think about that. If you're prioritizing friendships or relationships that are not serving you well, that are not making you feel so great, then it might be time to reevaluate. I'm just becoming much more aware that energy is limited and I just don't want to waste it on noise and static all the time. I've become much more protective of my energy. And it's not because I'm less driven, it's just because I understand the value of that energy. From doing less, I've found that I do have more energy. I have more focus, more presence, so that I can really hone in on those things that matter most to me. And I would really recommend that if you're feeling like you're stretched thin by all the things, it might not be that you have a lack of motivation or poor time management skills. It might be a clarity problem. And clarity often begins with choosing less. Choosing to do less, it hasn't made my life smaller. It's actually made it bigger, more focused, more intentional, and much more meaningful.